This week on Quality Digest Live, we talked to Kelly Kuchinski, the product marketing manager at Cority, about FDA and OSHA compliance and how environmental health and safety and quality software can help. Join us in just 1 minute. Welcome back to Quality Digest Live. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Dirk Ducharme, Editor-in-Chief of Quality Digest. You know, often when we think of implementing a quality management system, it's in conjunction with helping meet the requirements of a QMS standard like ISO 9001 or AS 9100, that sort of thing. And usually the stakes for non-compliance, while serious, are usually along the lines of maybe a lost contract, or maybe in a really serious case, the cost of non-compliance might be a lawsuit. But when it comes to meeting federal regulations, such as OSHA rules and laws, or maybe FDA regulations, the cost of poor quality or non-compliance can mean your business being shut down. I mean, literally chains across the door, and even arrests being made. So you could make the argument that any tool that helps you track and maintain records about your quality system, particularly where it interacts with legal requirements, is really important. And that is where environmental health, safety, and quality, or EHSQ software, comes into play. So joining us today is Kelly Kuchinski. Kelly is the product marketing manager for Cority and also the author of the article, Improve Risk Management and Quality Across the Value Chain by Increasing Visibility. Hi, Kelly. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Dirk. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. So, you know, when we we have written several times using kind of this maybe kind of a jargony term for a lot of people, visibility. And you've written about it very often. We talk about visibility into a process and visibility into our organization. For people who work within industry, maybe that term has some meaning, but I think a lot of people, you know, what do you mean by visibility? It's just one of those terms. So how do you define it, and how does it tie into all of this and maybe into risk management?
Sure. Well, you know, most manufacturers have an ERP system, and that handles their sales and their financial transactions. They also have an MES system, and that tracks their raw materials through finished goods. However, a lot of companies are still managing shop floor processes with paper or spreadsheet documents, and this information is either outdated, misplaced, or siloed in somebody's files or in their computer. And manual processes tend to be structured so employees sometimes can create those workarounds to avoid the paperwork. But this doesn't solve a problem, it just delays it. So whether it's a standard operating procedure, an audit report, a nonconformance finding, any of these things can really have a big impact on safety, efficiency, quality output, and even compliance. So when you centralize information in an EHS and quality system, or EHSQ, you're able to get that holistic view of all shop floor processes, and you can integrate that with other IT systems, and that creates that visibility you're looking for across the facility, but across the enterprise as well. And by viewing this information, you can look in dashboard reports, and management can start to see those trends and anomalies sooner in the process and easily drill down to view the source of that area of concern. So this way you can share that information and proactively manage high-risk areas that could impact the business. For example, we had a company, they were having a problem with consistency of finished goods. And they ran a dashboard report, and they found that there was an area, they isolated the incident to occurring in the third shift on production lines 3 and 4. They opened an investigation and discovered that instrument calibrations were being set incorrectly. 2 weeks prior, someone opened a management of change, and it had been issued, but the production line manager was on vacation. So when he returned, he was still using those outdated calibrations. And he didn't realize there was an alert sent to his email, And as many of us do, when we get back from vacation, we just don't get through them all. But as a result, he was using the old calibrations. So having that visibility and those alerts go into their email, they can get a link to the new MOCs and they can make the changes that they need to. So having those right tools to manage issues earlier in the process really creates that visibility and reduces cost, throughout the enterprise, and it really adds up in the end.
So when you say visibility, then within this context, what you mean is that everybody or all the relevant stakeholders within an organization can see what's going on, as opposed to it being just, quotes, visible to the person maybe who created the document or who's working on the process. They may know what's going on, but if everybody else doesn't going on, if they're lacking that, quote, visibility into the process, then they're missing key information that they might need in order to do their job, right? Is that kind of what we're talking about?
Right. And a lot of things are siloed in each department. So having that ability to see things across the departments and share that information across the teams, that really helps with that visibility. And I think more and more people are taking advantage of that as they start to implement those systems.
Does this apply to the supply chain as well? So when you say visibility, do you mean just within your organization, or does this extend to your suppliers or all your vendors along your supply chain?
No, 50% of product recalls can be attributed to a supplier or contract vendor issue. And organizations understand this, and they want to have better visibility into those areas as well. But again, with these medium and large size organizations, they sometimes have hundreds to thousands of suppliers in the network. So how do you create that visibility into any of the nonconformances or quality issues? Well, you really got to treat them like they're your own people. And when companies automate those quality processes, they want to create a standard, repeatable process with consistent, well-documented, and cost-effective controls. You want to make sure your system provides that same workflow for suppliers. That's why, like, a true SaaS EHSQ system gives you that flexibility that users need to access the system, and admin users can go in and restrict the areas that those suppliers can access or view. So it provides that data security for both company as well as the supplier, while still enhancing the transparency to create a more collaborative development process.
Well, I would see where a sticking point on this might be, particularly in industries that are super competitive, medical device and medical and food and that sort of stuff, that a lot of transparency might be something they don't really want because they're afraid of trade secrets getting out and that sort of stuff. I mean, is that an issue when you're talking about visibility into your supply chain?
It's always a concern for the actual brand owner and their contract vendors, but having the tools that you need, like a system that has the security protocol in place to allow users only certain access, that gives you that ability to correct a quality issue at your supplier for a raw material or part, that allows you to have control with them and their quality processes without jeopardizing your security or getting them into your firewall to jeopardize your data.
Right. So you're saying the tools are in place to kind of protect things from at least from a technical point of view, from hacking or people getting into your own data that you don't want to share.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's what makes the SaaS platform so much different than an on-prem solution. You really don't want people to get into your system on-prem, but if you have a really strong, secure system in the cloud, you can protect that data and you can protect other parts of your company as well with your data security.
Okay, so let's change gears here a little bit. So one thing that we've been talking about in Quality Digest a lot is just FDA regulations, OSHA regulations to a certain extent. So from the perspective of record keeping, and from your experience, what are some of the biggest mistakes or oversights that can get you in trouble during an OSHA or FDA audit? Just common, just record-keeping errors.
Sure. Well, one of the hardest things for work sites to do is to be prepared for an OSHA or FDA audit or inspection. And it's really hard because they don't get an alert before they're coming out. So you always have to be ready to be inspected. And the first piece of advice I have is to always be prepared. Be a Boy Scout. For an audit, you should always have any previous issues, any fatalities or catastrophes already documented, and then show them how you changed your processes and procedures, and even your equipment. Have it all dated and documented to show them how you are you're securing your facilities to ensure your employee safety and your customer safety, and you want to make sure that doesn't reoccur.
And EHSQ software can kind of aid in that by what? Making it easier for inspectors to look at your documents? Is that kind of what we're saying here?
Exactly. And one of the things that we have is a document control module that stores all that data. It stores your MSDS, your product sheets, your CAPAs, and your nonconformances and incidents. So that's all stored in one location. So it's great because when you're doing an audit, and I always like to tell people, develop an audit as if you were going to do your own internal audit and mirror it with the inspector. So do the audit like you would with the inspector, and you want to do it on a regular basis, and have that walkthrough with the people that are going to be sponsoring it. Because so whether it's the safety manager, the plant manager, quality manager, they need to know how to walk through it and talk about it, and really know all those high risk areas. And you, again, can identify things more proactively when you're on site and you're checking through this audit yourself. But one of the things they're going to ask you to do is, hey, can you pull up your last nonconformance? How did you track nonconformances or incidents over the last 6 months? If you are fumbling around with paper files and you can't find the corresponding CAPAs to go with it, that is really going to send off a red alert to an inspector. By having an automated system that tracks all those documents, tracks all the dates, and the safety incidents, as well as all those corrective actions, he's going to see a paper trail. And that's going to give him a lot of confidence that, your system is really handling this.
That you know what you're doing. Can you give us an example, maybe, of how software, EHSQ software, has addressed risk management, and maybe something that you've seen out in the field where maybe without such a system, they could have stepped into some sort of landmine?
Sure. Well, again, I heard about an incident recently, and as I was saying, there's lots of silos of data across production and safety and quality, and an EHSQ system provides that holistic view across the shop floor. So if you're a food manufacturer and you need to monitor quality across the facility, they're tracking the nonconformances, the equipment calibration, SOPs, documentation, and they're doing all these things to meet the ISO 9001 requirements. Everything's operating efficiently. You take a step back, but you still need to look at the complete picture. So one of the FDA regulations has a real big impact on food manufacturers, and that's 21 CFR Part 110, Section 10. And that's a mouthful, but it really addresses disease control. And employees who are contagious or have some sort of illness, they have to be removed from the food production area. and that's going to reduce any contamination risks. Some companies require regular testing, and so we do work with them to provide that OH/IH industrial hygiene testing with labs, and we integrate with those lab systems. And if an employee tests positive for one of those big fours, they call it in the industry for FDA, and one of them being hepatitis A, the lab will upload results into our EHSQ system, and the alert will be sent out to HR as well as operations.
Okay,
this sends this notification. It identifies the areas in the plant to sanitize. You inspect production lots, you scrap contaminated product, and you hold orders until product quality is confirmed. So this allows organizations to work collaboratively to identify an issue and quarantine product before it leaves the facility. Otherwise, this huge product recall will happen, and that really impacts customer confidence, product sales, and a brand's reputation.
So is that something that can be, how do I want to say this? So could you set up kind of an emergency process, so to speak, within the software where, look, if this thing happens, we've just detected that employee X had some sort of contagion. You essentially push a button and all the alerts go out to the right people, and everything is just kind of starts running on its way without people having to run through maybe a manual checklist or something.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is part of a standard operating procedure with any food industry manufacturer, but our system activates triggers. So that sends immediate alerts to select people within the organization so that the processes can be started and the workflows can be generated so that they can address the issues directly.
Okay.
So it's not waiting for someone to react to it. It's getting people to react to it as quickly as possible.
And I'm guessing that this kind of system also works with your HACCP, your hazard analysis and critical control points system as well, our process.
Yeah, and I mean it does depend on which industry you're talking about,
Sure.
but whether it's failure mode and effects analysis or FMEA or hazard analysis and critical control points, which is HACCP. It depends on your industry, but you want to focus on identifying those failures or hazards earlier in the process, so you can reduce those higher costs associated with addressing it when it's a finished good. So what we want to do is work with teams within the facility to create that team hierarchy, which is really common core with both processes. And you want to collect the documentation. You want to enable viewing and changes and approvals with all those documents. But you want to store the most current documents within that system, which we can do. And historical documents are saved for archive, but also you want to define the processes, analyze each step in the process, in the manufacturing process that is, and you want to identify any of those critical control points where there could be a failure. You need to categorize each of those steps, and you want to rank them as well. You want to rank them for the highest risk being first, so you can really choose to monitor that and really track the effectiveness of your controls. And with EHSQ, you have the ability to look at the findings and actions as a way to increase the level of, say, quality. You can make those incremental changes so you can achieve those continuous improvement efforts that companies are striving to do.
Okay. Well, you have a webinar coming up next week. You'll be presenting. I'll be hosting. It's risk management and quality across the value chain. Can you just give us a little bit of a tease of what we're going to see there?
Great. Yeah, so I really want to talk about how important risk management is across shop floors. And I know that FDA and ISO requirements are really important to create stability within processes across EHSQ. But how does risk management play there within your own facility, but also, again, with your value chain partners, your suppliers and your contract manufacturers? and how can you use the right tools to accomplish what you want to do, and digitize the information that you have so you can start operating in that Industry 4.0 world. And I also want to review some of the business case information and how does quality and EHS get a seat at the corporate table so they can get funding for their projects. And I can show them how they can also calculate the cost of poor quality, which really should have a lot of attention as we move forward in trying to achieve a quality product.
Okay, perfect. Well, Kelly Kuchinski, thanks for joining us.
All right, thank you, Dirk.
Sure. And if you want more information on this topic, like Kelly said, be sure to sign up for the webinar, Risk Management and Quality Across the Value Chain, and that is happening next week on Tuesday, March 12th at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 Eastern. Kelly will be presenting. As you can see, she's very knowledgeable about the topic, and you want to sign up for that. I will be hosting, so I'll be there just kind of moderating the questions and so forth. And yeah, just kind of reiterate some of what's going to be covered. How to balance ISO 9001 requirements and internal risk management, reducing supplier and contract vendor risk, and as Kelly pointed out there, which is really important, how to create the business case for a quality management solution, because you want to convince your boss that this is something they want to do. So you don't want to miss that. You should be getting an email to sign up for the webinar, or you can just use the link underneath the player page down there and link out to it and sign up. So that is it for today's Quality Digest Live. Thanks, Kelly, for joining us. And as usual, if you have some ideas of who or what you would like to see on the show, send those to us at qdl@qualitydigest.com, and we'll try to bring those people or things onto the show. That's it for today. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week. So long.